did the Las Vegas Grand Prix live up to the hype?
Here we go.
Or changes are needed?
Well, Jackson, you're going to have to watch the pre-race show because I'm not going to get as fired up as I was yesterday. But sorry to disappoint. I will say this. I don't think it was possible for it to live up to the hype because the amount that they were hyping it up, was setting themselves up for that being an impossibility. Just the amount of promotion and attention that this was getting, and people saying this is going to be a spectacle. This is going to be bigger than when the Super Bowl comes here in a couple of years. I'm sorry. I know we got a great race, especially given what we've been treated to most of this year. I still don't think it was ever going to live up to the impossible hype that people were making this out to be, particularly leading up to it this week. And then again, obviously what happened on Thursday night, especially for the fans that were in attendance, that are still dealing with that to the point where they filed a class action lawsuit over the whole mess. I don't think we can just forget about that either. So great race. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it was a complete snooze fest, even though it did end up in another Max Verstappen win. The on-track product was absolutely sensational. There were a lot of overtakes all throughout the field, a legitimate battle for the win. I think it was a great race, and I think that it gives you a blueprint for the kind of conditions that you want ideally next year to hopefully produce something similar. That being said, you look at the entire weekend and what improvements or changes need to be made. The fan experience, that's something that cannot be ignored, and that's something that, to everybody's point on social media this weekend, say what you will about the leadership in NASCAR, about the leadership in IndyCar, maybe about the leadership in IMSA. The fan experience over there in terms of the access that you get and how the fans were treated. And again, say what you will about some leadership decisions, at least you can kind of see how the leaders in charge of those series are at least listening to fan feedback and considering it. Maybe not, to the point where they're letting the fans run the series, but you at least feel like you have a voice and you're being heard. There's no argument that can be made that those fans in Formula One on Thursday night have anything similar to that in the same stratosphere or galaxy as that in terms of their privileges and rights as Formula One fans, to be treated the way they were, kicked out of FP2 after waiting hours for it into the early hours of Friday morning, and then be told, oh, well, thank you for coming. Here's a $200 voucher for your troubles, without apologize or regret being two of the 600 some odd words in that statement there that Formula One released. That obviously needs to be looked at. That cannot happen again, and that needs to be improved. You need to do a 180 on that in terms of your attitude and the fan experience before we come back in 2024. But as for the on-track product, certainly better than I was expecting, and I think it does, at least, again, to my point yesterday, for the fans that don't really care about practice, that are only going to watch the race, the casual race fans, if you want to go and use that term. I think that they come away with this experience, probably pleased with what they saw last night / this morning for the East Coast viewers that bothered to stay up. And I think, again, probably never going to live up to the hype that they gave it. But all things considered, I think it was probably the best case scenario in terms of the on-track product we could have seen.
I think for all the guys on Grid Network, for me, have seen the kind of love-hate relationship I've developed with this race, because as a SoCal kid, I was so excited in 2021 when I found out that this race was coming, that there was going to be an American race that wasn't going to be an absurd distance from me that I could go to. And then the prices were revealed, and it just felt like they were going so against the grain from what I've seen at Long Beach, how they were planning on treating the fans, how they were planning on running the event. And it just felt like all of that came to fruition Thursday night. And I am so waiting for the t-shirts to drop that say, I saw 9 minutes of F1 on Thursday night and all I got was this dumb t-shirt.
And it cost me more than $200.
It cost me more than $200 to be here. But and I absolutely hope that goes through. But watching comfortably from my home, there was for sure this mentality of make this race a barnstormer, and not all, but most of this will be forgiven. And dang it, they delivered. And dang it, seeing those cars almost go 3 wide down the strip, it's pretty cool. So I do think, to an extent, if you ignore the 48 hours before race day, yes, it was very cool. And I think it did actually, to an extent, live up to the hype. I do have one massive caveat here. And that is just how this race is being presented and how it should be ran through the future. I get you're launching something that's new, something that's very, very, again, kind of standing out from the rest of the Formula One races. I don't think it should have gotten this insane level of Vegas treatment. You do not need these Wednesday night introductions where drivers are saying, this feels like the Hunger Games. Why am I doing this? You don't need to have the Blue Man Group and Elvis impersonators running around the paddock. You don't need to have Bruce Buffer from the UFC screaming your name. And then there's Checo standing there like Tyler won at TwitchCon. Like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do next? You don't need these guys driving in a limo so they can go to a separate hotel just for the interviews and then going all the way back for the, sorry guys.
Back off on that.
For the podium, for the most awkward car ride that's going to be memed so hard. What I'm getting at here is the racing on track was absolutely fantastic. Use that to sell this race. Don't use anything else. You have a fantastic sense of speed because of the lights, because of how close everything is. You have a great race setup with how these cars can overtake. This could be genuinely one of the biggest races, not just in North America, but in the world. Use the on-track action to sell it. Make it more accessible to fans. Make this the true American race, and I will totally be there with it every step of the way. And aside from the absolute train wreck that was Thursday night, this could still be something very, very special in the next couple of years. I am sorry for freaking the hell out. Joey, please calm me down.
No, I don't know if I'm going to be able to calm you down. I will say, just to play devil's advocate for a hot second here, the FP1 fiasco, yes, that was a bit of a train wreck. However, if we look at Spa 2021, the race that never was, when Russell got his first podium in a Williams because they did 9 minutes of racing behind a safety car after 4-hour rain delay. No one there got refunds either. They watched the same amount of racing, except that was a race, not a practice. And I understand that people, drove in, these tickets were expensive and all that. But if we can forgive Formula One for, doing that on a race, and I'm not quite actually saying that we have forgiven Formula One, but I think it's interesting how much people want to come after Las Vegas for this incident, whereas Spa, a beloved and historic track, having an incident that is kind of equally part of the environment, right? Rain versus a manhole cover that has never been driven over by a Formula One car. I almost call it weather, but it's weather from the ground. It's unforeseen circumstances. That's the point that I'm getting at. We're quicker to forgive a place like Spa than we are Vegas. And because of that, I think this did live up to the hype, because the hype wasn't that this was going to be a perfect race. When we reacted to a race happening in Las Vegas, none of us thought, perfect, that's exactly what we want. This is going to be the perfect race. I hope it delivers. We said, no, this is going to be a train wreck. And we got exactly what we wanted and more. We got the train wreck. We got to see the spectacle. We got to see all the problems and the niggles and the, putting F1 under the microscope of the fact that they, deal with these high dollar companies and it's all about the money. And on top of that, we got a good race. That's the best of both worlds, as far as I'm concerned.
No, it's great to see it recover. It's hard for me to compare it to Spa because, one, Spa as a track can't just be like, you get the hell out of here, Rain. There was so much that was avoidable for this. Kim Illman, F1 photographer, was literally saying, these manhole covers are usually locked down or welded in or something. I don't know why they aren't yet. We're going to have to see if they, fly out. And it's more of just a lack of preparation. Could Spa have done bigger, try and had bigger drain covers or had some way of getting that water out a bit better? Yes, sure. But again, I just feel like that was from a lack of preparation for the F1 race, for the Vegas race, at least.
Yeah, I mean, well, for Spa, that was the lack of preparation was that we hadn't raced in Spa at that time of year when they have those
That's true.
rains
That's true.
before. So it is an F1 Liberty Media lack of preparation on both ends. One is a little more avoidable than the other. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to sour the world on Las Vegas when it comes to the third or fourth time that we're here.